"You're supposed to be in Seattle," my brother said, staring at me from behind the chain latch of my own front door. He did not swing it open. He did not step aside. He just held his ground in the 2-inch gap like a bouncer at a club I owned, his jaw tight, his eyes doing that rapid calculation I had watched him do since we were children whenever he got caught at something. Behind him, I could smell coffee. My coffee. Brewing in my kitchen, in my apartment, in the building my grandmother left to me 18 months ago. "I came back early," I said. My voice was steady, quieter than I expected it to be. "How early?" "Early enough." He exhaled through his nose, long and deliberate, the way my father exhaled when he was about to tell you that your feelings were an inconvenience to him. Then the chain scraped back, and the door swung open, and I saw everything at once. My grandmother's apartment, the one she kept spotless for 40 years, the one that smelled like lavender and lemon oil when she was alive, looked like a storage unit that had lost a fight. There were sneakers by the radiator, a stroller wedged between the entryway wall and the coat rack, a pack and play in the corner of the living room, where her reading chair used to be. My reading chair now. The white slipcover was gone, replaced by a fleece throw printed with cartoon dinosaurs. My sister-in-law was sitting at the kitchen island with a mug in both hands, watching me the way you watch a weather forecast you are hoping will change. "Lauren," she said. Not a greeting. A warning. "Where is the reading chair?" I asked. My brother closed the door behind me. "We moved it to the storage unit. It was taking up too much space." "My storage unit. We are all family here." He walked past me into the kitchen and poured himself a cup of my coffee like we were roommates. Like this was a normal Tuesday morning. Like he had not just admitted to moving my furniture into a cage in the basement of a building he did not own. "Sit down, Lauren. You look like you need to breathe." I did not sit down. "How long?" I asked. He and my sister-in-law exchanged a look. That look. The one married people develop for exactly these moments. The silent negotiation about who is going to say the thing out loud. 3 weeks, my sister-in-law said. Give or take. 3 weeks. I had been in Seattle for a consulting contract. 6 weeks total, I had told them. My brother knew the building, knew the doorman, had the spare key I had given him for one specific reason, in case of a plumbing emergency. My grandmother's pipes were old. I had given him the key 6 months ago and told him it was for emergencies only. And now he had used it to move his entire life into my home, while I was 1,200 miles away. You had no right, I said. We had nowhere to go. His voice shifted, softer now, calculated. This was the gear change I remembered from every argument we had ever had. He started hard, then went soft the moment he sensed resistance. The landlord sold the building. Lauren. We had 60 days, and we could not find anything in our budget. Cora's mother is in a 1-bedroom. My parents. Our parents, I said. Our parents have the basement, but there is no bathroom down there, and we have a toddler. What were we supposed to do? Let Ellie sleep on a floor? And there it was. The toddler. My niece, Ellie, 22 months old and completely blameless, being placed between me and any reasonable response like a small, dimpled shield. I looked around the apartment again, more carefully this time. There was a basket of laundry on my grandmother's shaker bench. There were crayon marks on the baseboard near the hallway. There was a phone charger plugged into the outlet beside the bookcase, and beside the bookcase, on the shelf where my grandmother kept her first edition Toni Morrison, there was a baby monitor. You enrolled Ellie in the daycare on Prescott, my sister-in-law said. She started Monday. She loves it. I turned slowly. You enrolled my niece, I said, in a daycare near my apartment. My apartment that you moved into without asking me. We did not want it to be a disruption. She set down her mug. Her voice had taken on the particular texture of someone reciting a rehearsed speech. We knew you were going to overreact. We wanted Ellie settled before you got back so there would be less drama. Your brother works 60 hours a week and he cannot deal with drama right now. Less drama. They had moved into my home, enrolled my niece in a school district near my address, pushed my grandmother's furniture into a storage locker, and the goal had been to minimize drama. I picked up my bag. I'm going to think, I said. Lauren, I need air. My brother followed me to the door. Don't do anything stupid, he said, low enough that his wife would not hear clearly. You have 3 bedrooms. You live alone. You don't even use this place on weekdays when you're on contract. You are being selfish. I looked at him for a long moment. He was my brother. We had grown up in the same house, eaten at the same table, been driven to the same schools by the same parents. I had watched him borrow and never repay, charm and never follow through, lean on every person in his life until they buckled or walked away. I had watched him do it to our parents, to his college roommates, to every employer who had given him a second chance. I had always been the one he did not do it to, because I had always been careful, always kept a professional distance wrapped in the language of love. I had given him a key for emergencies. I walked out. I sat in my car 2 blocks from the building for 40 minutes. Not crying, not shaking, just sitting with the specific cold clarity of someone who has just watched their last illusion break cleanly in half. I knew why I had not called the police the moment I walked in. I knew the law. In the state of Illinois, the moment someone has established residency mail, enrolled a child in school, been present for more than 30 days, removing them is no longer a police matter. It becomes civil. It becomes landlord-tenant court, which means filing, which means waiting, which means 3 to 6 months while they live in my grandmother's apartment and use my grandmother's dishes and erase every trace of who she was. I was not going to wait 6 months. I am a software engineer. I write systems for a living. Specifically, I write access management systems, permissions, authentication, revocation. My entire professional life is the architecture of who gets in and who gets locked out, and under what conditions, and how fast the lock can turn. They thought I was going to drive around the block and come back asking for a truce. I drove to a hotel and ordered room service and opened my laptop. I had 2 assets they did not know about. The first was the building's smart system. When I inherited the apartment, the first thing I did was install a full integration. Smart locks, thermostat, camera system, in the common areas, appliance monitoring. It was all tied to my account. I had never given my brother the app. He had the physical key, but the physical lock had a motor in it, and that motor answered to me. The second asset was something I had discovered 3 days ago, while still in Seattle. I had gotten a push notification on my phone. Airbnb host account activity, a new booking request. I did not have an Airbnb host account. I opened it. Someone had created a listing using photos of my grandmother's second bedroom, the one with the window seat, the one where I kept my drafting table, and listed it at $94 a night. The profile name was a variation on my brother's wife's maiden name, 1 letter changed. They had been running it for 11 days. 3 guests had already checked out. 2 more were booked. My brother was not just squatting in my apartment. He was monetizing it. I sat in my hotel room and breathed through that information for a long time. Then I opened a document and started writing. Not an eviction notice. Not a cease and desist. Something more specific. I knew that going to the police right then would give me nothing. Without documented residency removal, without a paper trail, without proof that they had received formal notice and refused to comply, any officer who showed up would look at a domestic situation and call it a civil matter. I had seen it happen to a colleague. 6 months of court dates and the squatter still had not left. I needed them to leave on their own. Quickly, completely, and in a way that gave me every legal advantage if they did not. I called a property attorney I had worked with during the inheritance process. I laid out the situation. She confirmed what I suspected about the tenant protection timeline. Then she said something I had not expected. The Airbnb activity changes things significantly, she said. Operating a short-term rental without the property owner's consent in Chicago violates city ordinance and the building's lease terms. More importantly, it voids any squatter protection they might otherwise have accrued, because it constitutes commercial exploitation of the property. You also have grounds for a fraud report to the platform, which will move faster than any court. I asked her what she recommended. She told me. I went back to my document and rewrote it entirely. At 11 the next morning, I called my brother. I've been thinking, I said. Good. Relief flooding his voice immediately. He had been waiting for me to cave. He had always been waiting for me to cave. It was what I did, historically. I got upset. I processed. I decided that maintaining the relationship was worth absorbing the cost. He knew the pattern because he had been running it against me for 30 years. You're right that I have more space than I use during contracts, I said. It's not fair that Ellie doesn't have a stable environment. I was being reactive. The silence on the other end was the silence of someone trying not to sound too triumphant. I knew you'd come around, he said. But I can't just have you living there informally. My insurance won't cover it. If Ellie gets hurt, I'm liable. We need to make it official. What does official mean? A property management agreement. You act as on-site caretakers. You handle maintenance coordination when I'm on contract, accept deliveries, manage the building relationship. In exchange, you have the apartment. Full utilities included. I get a tax deduction on the caretaker arrangement, and you get documented, stable housing that you can use for Ellie's school enrollment. Another silence. Shorter this time. You'd put that in writing? I'd have to, for the IRS. But yes, what does it involve? Signing a service agreement. Standard language. It protects both of us. I heard him relay this to my sister-in-law in a low voice. I heard her ask about health coverage. I had anticipated this. The agreement makes you eligible for enrollment in my LLC's benefits plan, I said. Medical, dental, vision. It's a business account. As long as you're contracted through the LLC, you're covered. The pause this time was the pause of someone who had just been handed everything they wanted and was trying to figure out why it felt too easy. We'd have to talk to our people, my sister-in-law said in the background. Of course, I said. Take the night. I can have the paperwork ready tomorrow. I already had the paperwork ready. I had spent 7 hours the night before with my attorney on the phone, building it clause by clause. The surface of the document read like a generous arrangement. The bones of it were something else entirely. A caretaker service agreement, unlike a lease, does not create a tenancy. It creates a contractor relationship. The occupancy is a benefit of the contract, not an independent right. The moment the contract ends, The right to occupy ends with it, immediately, without the notice periods and court procedures that protect tenants. I buried the important language in the middle sections where eyes tend to drift. Section 5.2. Occupancy of the premises is provided exclusively as a condition of active service engagement. Section 7.4. Service engagement may be terminated by either party at will, with occupancy rights expiring simultaneously upon termination. Section 9.1. Contractor consents to continuous video and audio monitoring in all common areas for property security purposes, in accordance with Illinois recording law. Section 11.3. Contractor acknowledges that any commercial use of the premises, including short-term rental activity, requires prior written authorization from the property owner, and that unauthorized commercial use constitutes immediate grounds for termination. That last clause was the one I had written 3 times and then written again. I also included a background authorization section, formatted to look like routine insurance bonding language. By signing, they were authorizing me to pull a full credit and background report. I already had some of what I expected to find. I wanted the rest documented. I met them at the apartment the next afternoon. My brother answered the door with the easy confidence of a man who believed he had already won. He had shaved. He was wearing his good shirt. He shook my hand, his own sister, at the door of my grandmother's apartment, and said, "Come in, let me get you something." The apartment looked slightly more organized than it had 2 days ago. They had made an effort. My grandmother's couch was back in its original position. Someone had wiped the crayon marks off the baseboard, or tried to. There was still a faint green line near the floor that the cleaning spray had not reached. My sister-in-law had baked. There was a plate of something on the kitchen island next to a small vase of grocery store flowers. I sat down. I put the folder on the table. "This is the service agreement," I said. "You'll see the scope of the caretaker duties outlined in Section 2. It's light building liaison, accepting packages, weekly visual inspection of the common utilities. Nothing that should interfere with work schedules." My brother picked up the document. He flipped through it the way people flip through terms and conditions, looking for the word free and the word forever, and skipping everything in between. "This looks straightforward," he said. "It is," I said. "The benefits section is on page 4. My sister-in-law found page 4. Her expression went from cautious to something warmer. "This is a really good plan," she said quietly. She looked at my brother. He looked at her. She nodded. "You're sure about the benefits?" he asked me. "Because Cora's prescription costs are covered under the group plan," I said. "Effective 30 days after signing." He picked up the pen. He did what people do when they are too relieved to be careful. He signed his name on the signature line without reading sections 5 through 11. My sister-in-law signed her name below his. I signed as the property owner and dated it. "I'm really glad we sorted this out," my brother said. He was already relaxing back into the chair, settling. He looked, for one unguarded moment, like a man who believed he had found a permanent solution to a lifetime of impermanent situations. "Me too," I said. "One more thing, and this is just administrative." I slid a second, shorter form across the table. "This is the background authorization for the insurance bonding. Standard for any contractor relationship under the LLC. Just your signatures at the bottom." He signed without looking up. My sister-in-law did the same. I collected the forms, put them in my folder, and stood up. "I need to get back to the hotel," I said. "I have a call in an hour, but I'll send you the digital copies tonight." My brother walked me to the door. He put his hand on my shoulder, a big, warm, brotherly grip, the kind he deployed after every reconciliation, the kind that was meant to feel like forgiveness but always felt, to me, like a flag being planted. "You're a good person, Lauren," he said. "You always were the steady one." I smiled and walked down the hallway to the elevator. I did not go back to the hotel. I went to a coffee shop 3 blocks away, ordered an Americano, and opened my laptop. The background report came back in 4 hours. It was extensive. My brother had 2 judgments against him for unpaid credit card debt totaling just over $19,000. He had been terminated from his last 2 employers and listed one of them as a current reference, which is a small fraud I filed away for later. My sister-in-law had a civil claim pending from her previous landlord, her name, not my brother's, for $2,600 in damages and 4 months of back rent. She had vacated the premises before being served and had not updated her address with the court. She was not just between apartments. She was running from a process server. My grandmother's apartment was a hiding place. I pulled up the Airbnb investigation I had initiated 2 days earlier. The platform had responded. 3 listings connected to the account had been flagged. The account had been suspended pending review. I had submitted documentation of my ownership and the unauthorized nature of the listing. I had also filed a report with the City of Chicago's Department of Housing regarding unpermitted short-term rental activity, which carried a fine of up to $3,000 per occurrence. That night, I went back to the apartment. I did not knock. I used my key. My brother was in the kitchen eating the leftover baked goods. My sister-in-law was on the couch with her laptop, and I could see, before she minimized the window, that she was looking at Airbnb, looking at the suspended account. Her face when she heard the door open was a specific combination of expressions I had never seen on a person before. Guilt and indignation arriving at the same moment, fighting for the same features. I set my bag down. I know about the Airbnb, I said. Nobody said anything. I know about the 3 guests who already checked out and the 2 bookings you canceled when the account got flagged. I looked at my sister-in-law specifically. I also know about the judgment from your last landlord. I know you've been avoiding service. She closed her laptop. You signed a background authorization 12 hours ago, I said. Section 11 of the agreement you also signed addresses unauthorized commercial use of the premises. I am terminating the service agreement effective right now. Under Section 7.4, your occupancy rights expire simultaneously. My brother stood up. You are no longer contractors under the LLC, I said. You are not tenants. You are not licensees. You are guests whose invitation has been revoked. You have until tomorrow at noon to remove your belongings. We have a toddler, he said. His voice had gone to the soft gear again, the calculated gear, but it did not land the way it used to. Maybe because I had stopped needing it to be real. I know. That's why I'm giving you until noon, and not tonight. There are 2 family shelters within 2 miles that accept children. I have written down both addresses. I put a piece of paper on the kitchen island. I also called our parents an hour ago and told them exactly what has happened. If they want to help you find temporary housing, that is between you and them. You had no right to call them, my sister-in-law said. Her voice was sharp and fragile at the same time. The voice of someone whose carefully constructed version of events had just been handed to the people who were supposed to believe it. I had every right, I said. They are our parents, and they were being kept in the dark while you used my address to hide from a civil lawsuit. She stood up. You are completely unreasonable. We are family. Family helps each other. Family asks first, I said. Family uses a key for plumbing emergencies, not for moving their furniture in while I'm out of state. Family does not list my grandmother's bedroom on a rental platform and charge strangers $94 a night to sleep in it. The word grandmother landed. I saw it land. My brother looked at the floor. He knew he had always known what this apartment meant to me and to the rest of our family, and he had made the calculation that what it meant to me was worth less than what it could give him. Noon tomorrow, I said again. I will be here at noon to change the locks. I went to the hallway. I took out my phone. I opened the building's smart system and re-enrolled myself as the sole administrator, removing the temporary guest access code I had never given them but that the system had generated when I first connected it. I dropped the thermostat to 62 degrees. I locked the refrigerator compartment. I set the entry alert chime to activate every 45 minutes overnight. Not comfortable. Not unbearable. Just uncomfortable enough to communicate that the terms had changed. I went back to the hotel and I did not sleep much, but I was not anxious. I was waiting. At 8:15 in the morning, I received a call from my mother. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. Lauren, your brother called me last night and I cannot believe you would do this to your own family. They have a baby. They have nowhere to go. Your grandmother would be a pause. A breath. She would be so disappointed in you. I had expected this. The grandmother card was the oldest card in the deck, and my mother knew exactly where to find it. I called her back. Good morning, I said. Don't good morning me. Your brother. Mom. I kept my voice level. I need you to listen to me for 60 seconds without talking. Can you do that? She was quiet, which was not nothing. They have been living in my apartment for 3 weeks without asking me. They used my key for an emergency and converted it into a permanent move-in. They used the second bedroom as an Airbnb listing and collected money from strangers without my consent. And Cora is actively evading a civil process server from her last landlord by using my address as a place to hide. I paused. I found all of this out in the last 4 days. I gave them until noon today to leave with their belongings. I am not calling the police. I am not pursuing the Airbnb income as theft, even though my attorney tells me I could. I am giving them time and an address list for family shelters. That is more than they gave me. Silence. Not the silence of agreement. But not the silence of someone who had a prepared response either. She was hiding from a lawsuit? My mother said, finally. Yes. At your address. Yes. My mother's breathing changed slightly, something shifting behind it. Your father and I have a guest room, she said. It is a small house, but there is a guest room. I know, I said. I told Marcus that last night. He did not mention that I had a guest room. No, I said. He didn't. She hung up without saying goodbye, which was, from my mother, a significant thing. She did not hang up in anger. She hung up the way people hang up when they need to make another call. I arrived at the apartment at 11:45. They were mostly packed. The stroller was in the hallway. The pack-and-play was broken down and leaned against the wall. My sister-in-law was moving through the bedroom with the focused, compressed energy of someone who is too angry to look at anyone directly. My brother met me at the door. He looked older. I do not mean that in a cruel way. I mean that in the 12 hours since I had left, Something had rearranged itself in his face, and what was left looked more honestly like the person he was underneath the performance. "The chair is still in storage," he said. "I'll get it this week, Lauren." He stopped. He looked at the floor, then at me. "The Airbnb thing. That was Cora's idea. I knew about it. But, you don't have to explain it to me," I said. "I'm trying to apologize." "I know." We stood there for a moment, the two of us, in the entryway of the apartment our grandmother had kept for 40 years. Ellie's stroller was between us. Somewhere in the back bedroom, a drawer was being shut hard. "I should have called you," he said. "You should have called me," I agreed. He nodded once. He did not say anything else, and I did not ask him to. Some apologies are enough. They are not a resolution. They are not a repair. But they are enough for right now. And right now is all I had energy to hold. They were gone by 12:30. I stood in the middle of the living room for a long time after the door closed. The apartment was not what it had been. The baseboard still had the shadow of a crayon line. The slipcover on the reading chair was gone, and I would need to replace it. There were rings on the kitchen island that I could probably get out with the right cleaner. The second bedroom smelled like someone else's lotion, and the window seat had a small scratch along the edge that had not been there before. But it was quiet. The specific quiet of a space that is yours again, that is only yours, that does not carry the weight of someone else's need in every room. I went to the storage unit in the basement and I brought the reading chair back upstairs myself, one awkward stair at a time. I put it back in front of the east window where my grandmother always kept it, facing the street, catching the afternoon light at exactly the angle that used to make her look up from her book and say, without context, that she was very grateful for windows. I sat in it for a while. My phone had 7 unread messages, 3 from my brother, 2 from my mother, 1 from my sister-in-law, which I did not open, 1 from my attorney, confirming that the service agreement termination was documented, and that she had received confirmation from the city of Chicago that the short-term rental complaint had been formally logged. I would answer them all. Eventually. On my own time. My sister-in-law is currently facing a civil judgment hearing that was rescheduled after she was formally served at my address, served, ironically, because I had given her process server my grandmother's building name when they called to confirm she was receiving mail there. My brother is staying with my parents, which is not a comfortable situation for anyone, but it is a situation with walls and a bathroom, and it is a situation he can exist in while he figures out what comes next. My niece Ellie is still enrolled in the daycare on Prescott, which I did not change, because she is 22 months old and had nothing to do with any of this. I have a new lock, a better one. I also have a new policy about spare keys. From now on, no key changes hands without a signed document describing exactly what the key is for and exactly when the permission ends. My attorney says this is excessive. My therapist says it is wisdom. I think they are probably both right, and I am comfortable holding both things at once. Someone asked me, after all of this, whether I felt guilty, whether I lay awake running the math on what I had done versus what I could have just let happen, whether some part of me wished I had simply absorbed it, given them the room, allowed the disruption, kept the peace the way I had always kept the peace, which was quietly, and at my own expense. I thought about that question honestly, the way I try to think about most things. No, I do not feel guilty. I feel something cleaner than I have felt in years. I feel like someone who has finally understood the difference between love and liability, between family and entitlement, between keeping the peace and losing yourself so gradually that you do not notice until you are standing outside your own front door, while someone else eats your food and charges strangers to sleep in your dead grandmother's bedroom. The peace I have now is not the peace of someone who gave in. It is the peace of someone who finally held the line and discovered, on the other side of it, that the line was always allowed to exist. I just had to be the one to draw it.